Yes, Saurabh. Kassis, mute yourself.
Sir, I should start.
Go ahead, Saurabh.
Yes, sir. A very warm good evening to everyone present here. I, Saurabh Kumar Singh of BA Program Second Year, would like to wholeheartedly welcome you all to the 19th session of Graduate Scholars Talk Series, which is a very new initiative by the GSTS committee in accordance with SAKSH and IQAC. The members of our GSTS committee are Ms. Manvi Saraswat, Mr. Ajay Gupta, Mr. Vishesh Kashmi, Mr. Mudit Bharadwaj, and myself. Now, this talk series was initiated on 7th of February 2021 under the guidance of
Good
Mr.
morning,
Manish
everyone.
Karamwasa, and since then it had been carried out with due perseverance and diligence weekly on every Sunday, providing students with a platform not only to enhance their speaking and presenting skills but also to promote higher order thinking skill among them. So before moving further into the program, let's take the blessing of Ma Saraswati. Mr. Vishesh and Ms. Divya, I request you to please play the Saraswati Vandana.
मातृ प्रणाम 1 2 3 या कुंदेन्दु तुषार हार धवला या शुभ्र वस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्ड मंडित करा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्कर प्रभृतिभिर्देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निशेषजाड्यापहा मातृ प्रणाम 1 2 3 स्वस्ति।
श्लोक अर्थ। जो विद्या की देवी भगवती सरस्वती कुंद के फूल, चंद्रमा, हिमराशि और मोती के हार की तरह धवल वर्ण की है और जो श्वेत वस्त्र धारण करती है, जिनके हाथ में वीणा दंड शोभ्यमान है, जिन्होंने श्वेत कमलों पर आसन ग्रहण किया है तथा ब्रह्मा, विष्णु एवं शंकर आदि देवताओं द्वारा जो सदा पूजित हैं, वही संपूर्ण जड़ता और अज्ञान को दूर कर देने वाली माँ सरस्वती हमारी रक्षा करें।
Thank you, Ms. Divya and Mr. Vishesh. Now it's time to welcome our dignified chief invitee for today's talk, Dr. Vikas Kumar sir, who is Associate Professor in the Department of History at Ramjas College, University of Delhi. He has completed his undergraduation, post-graduation, MPhil and PhD from University of Delhi itself and has more than 15 years of teaching experience. He has published 2 books and 10 research papers in international and national journals. He has also presented more than 10 papers in various seminars and conferences held globally. Sir has a remarkable understanding on history of peninsular India and different aspects of tourism. His very recent book, Streaming the Past, Peninsular India in History, as the name suggests, focuses on the peninsular India and covers diverse topics ranging from megalithic times to the 18th century. Employing versatile methods and examining wide-ranging themes, this book intervenes, disturbs, and challenges the dominant gaze of history writing in India and argues for a more wide-angled and cosmopolitan understanding of India's complex history. Dr. Vikas Kumar sir, please bless us with some encouraging words.
Okay. Hello. Am I audible? All right. Fine. Am I audible to everyone? Am I audible? Kindly let me know.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir,
Okay.
you are.
Fine. Okay. Thanks, Saurabh, for that introduction. It was quite long. I could have been
Yes,
very
sir.
brief, but thank you for that long introduction. First of all, let me my salutation, my regards to all the teachers of Shamlal Evening College, Dr. Pramod Singh ji, Dr. Raman Singh ji, Dr. Devnarayan Singh ji, Dr. Manish Karmar ji, and other teachers who are present here. I'm sorry if I'm missing out any name, and all the students, Karthik, Saurabh, Preeti, Chandani, whoever I can remember from the poster. Sorry if again I missed the name. All the students present here, and especially my wishes for Kashish. Such a nice topic, and I think that I'm going to enjoy that for for quite some time, and that's close to my heart. This topic, spices. Okay, so I think I wish her all the best. If time is on, I should just like Olympic and Asiad, you open the meet. So I think I'm going to open the meet, and I declare the meet open. I declare the top open. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words. We'll come back to you after the Kashish talks. So before I hand over the stage to Ms. Kashish, I would like a minute of everyone's time. So food is a topic that every one of us can relate. So something from my side that even before we became animals that cooks, we were like the rest of life, animals that had to eat. And our history as eating animals changed profoundly when we became cooking animals. And since then, food has been one of the most significant cultural markers of the identity in the contemporary society. And it provides a channel through which one can understand the social relations, family and kinship, class and consumption, gender ideology, and cultural symbolism. The anthropological food discourses brings to our attention that foodways are simultaneously local and global, foregrounding the changes in the local dynamics of production, consumption, adaptation, identity construction, and postmodern consumerism. And within the context of migration and diaspora, Pollock, an anthropologist, states that tracing the transnational influences through foodscapes enable us to highlight the cultural continuities and innovations, choices that communities make to enhance their identity. The transnational communities bring with them a rich cultural background, which, while representing the visible feature of their identity, also provides them with means for their integration and acceptance into the new society. Now, here I think everyone here must be very much familiar with the African slave trade. So it is said that the enslaved Africans that were taken to the New World were taken there within the 10 years of the formation of the New World, that is probably by 1504. And the last enslaved Africans that were smuggled into the New World by European and the North American slavers were taken around 1850. So we know that several disease plagues were very much common to that era, and it is not hidden to the world that millions of these slaves used to die while their transportation. Now, many studies have been carried out, and it is a 15% mortality rate is said to taken as a rate. So, if we assume a 15% mortality rate for people who died in the course of traffic from their enslavement to the arrival of the ships in the New World, then it is said that nearly 13 million persons would have died over a period, and this is probably the largest and the most terrible diaspora in the world history. But despite the condition under which these slaves were carried across the ocean and then sold and put to work, there were important food and culinary connections between the old world and the new world that survived all of it. There were also, of course, enormous changes and considerable improvisations, but it is thrilling all the same to discover both lexical and culinary evidences of continuity and change. Now, without taking any further time, I would like to invite Ms. Kashish Kamra to further highlight the dynamism in the foodways, foodscapes, and the culinary practices of the diaspora through her topic, Sugar and Spice, Not Everything is Always Nice.
विकास सर अपने को म्यूट कर सर. विकास सर kindly mute yourself.
Hello and welcome to everybody present. I am Kashish Kamra and I'm currently pursuing Masters from Delhi University. And during my graduation, I wrote a paper on the basic concept of food in context of migration. So I'd be presenting it today and I really appreciate your presence today here. And I just hope that this session will be fruitful to you. So the title of my paper was Sugar and Spice, Not Everything is Always Nice. So I'd like to begin by a quote. Food is everything we are today. It's an extension of nationalist feeling, ethnic feeling, your personal history, your province, your region, your tribe, your grandma. It is something inseparable. This quote by Anthony Bourdain is an appropriate description of the conventionally accepted fact that there is no love sincerer than the love for food. It reflects how everything that a person is centered around food. More than a means of sustenance, food is a significant binder of a person to his or her personal history. The familiar recipes that travels down through generations through oral history establishes inseparable bond between old and contemporary times for an individual. Food thus reflects societal, spiritual, artistic, psychological, political, and economic aspects as well. First, I would like to establish the importance of food by looking at all these aspects individually. So, first of all, importance of food is most intensified from when it is seen in relation to one's nationalist feeling. When one start associating with one's food practices with the nation, notions of homeland and abroad develops. And cuisines comes to scenario as a result, signifying the unique dishes accruing to specific region or a nation. Psychological aspects like mood, stress, and guilt are also an important determinant of food choices. So psychological stress, which is a common feature of modern life, modifies behaviors that affect our health, such as physical activity, smoking, or food choices. Hippocrates was the first one to suggest the healing power of food. However, it was not until the Middle Ages that food was considered a tool to modify one's temperament as well as mood. For instance, reports have also shown how food intake increases when a person experiences mood swings. So economic determinants further, like cost and income, also determine one's food choices. For example, we know how low-income groups have greater tendency to consume unbalanced diets, and in particular have low intakes of fruits and vegetables. Politically, we see food practices as a means to assert soft power. For instance, the process of McDonaldization, that is a phenomena that occurs when society, its institutions, its organizations are adapted to have the same characteristics that are found in fast food chains. So I'd like to take the example of America here, who in order to assert its sovereignty or establish its sovereignty is engaging itself in the process of McDonaldization or homogenization of fast foods. Moving further, spirituality is another aspect related to food. Spirituality has a relationship with nutrition, both in religious and non-religious perspectives, but I'd like to skip it for now because of the time constraint. Social determinants of the food practices are culture, family, peers, and meal patterns. What people eat is formed and constrained by circumstances that are essentially social and cultural. Cultural influences lead to differences in habitual consumption of certain foods and in traditions of preparation, and in certain cases can also lead to restrictions. For example, the exclusion of meat from diet. So cultural influences are, however, amenable to change. When a person moves to a new country, individuals adopt particular food habits of the local culture, which can be seen in how people try to adapt to new cultures. So I'd like to establish here how food practices happens when one migrates to other nation and is required to settle there. Migration can be a consequence of various factors, all narrowing down to the quest for stability of livelihood and a peaceful sleep with a nutritiously filled stomach. But while finding it, one may lose on to the stability of personal life, specifically food practices. One is bound to adapt to the cuisines of new region and give up one's food practices and loses the connect to homeland. One is likely to go under cultural shock before acculturation sets in, and it is at that point that nostalgia paves its way to the lives of migrants and cuisines experiences intermingling. The recipes are exchanged and a new sense of cohesiveness prevails. The role of women will also be seen in this context, where they try to cope with new ingredients and draw upon their homeland recipes to come out with something new. The household structures which are governed by women are also altered in the process. Therefore, this paper aims to understand the relation between migration and diaspora with culinary habits in two parts. One, defining the formation of diasporic identity of migrants and processes involved in it. And second, being the role of women in all of it. So I'd like to begin by diasporic identity of migrants, how it is established and what are the processes involved in it. So I'd like to begin by firstly defining what is migration and how it is different from diaspora. So in a very simplistic definition, migration is a movement of people from one place to another due to social, environmental, political, and economic reasons. And diaspora refers to a population that shares a common heritage who is scattered in different parts of the world. But when migration is seen in relation to food, it is a result of food insecurity. In a world where starvation often leads to suicides and deaths, global economy offers people chance to migrate and find better means of livelihood. It is a well-established fact by World Food Programme study that links between hunger levels and migration are on a positive scale. Migrants try to assimilate in new socio-cultural establishments. In this process, they are encountered with new dishes, new set of ingredients, and new forms of cuisines. This leads to the development of new set of identity of diaspora, where they base their culinary habits according to changed surroundings. People, when undergo the process of cultural assimilation, they often experience cultural shock prior to it. Cultural shock, in its definition, marks the personal disorientation that a person may feel while experiencing an unfamiliar way of life due to immigration to a new country. As an important part of psychological change, one is likely to develop the principles of homeland and host land. It is witnessed in diasporic literature also, where the immigrants engage in a practice to compare and more specifically beautify one's own nation while finding flaws with the newly encountered one. So the whole process of cultural shock unravels in 5 stages, and it is not to be seen in a linear fashion. So I'd like to explain here all the 5 stages that a person experiences while he or she travels to another country. The first stage that one experiences is the honeymoon stage. It sets in for migrants when they enter the new nation. They initially are in an enthusiasm to try new forms of cuisine and explore new cultures. They evaluate the new life in complete positive light and enjoy for a short span where a new country shapes food experiences for them. The stage of hostility sets in after this. This explains how nothing gold can stay for long. So the stage of hostility includes all the processes when memories of food from home start striking one's conscious, and one thrives on the ideals of good food by criticizing the taste, the ingredients, or even the order of food in host land. The stage of gradual adjustment follows, and it is marked when immigrants draws on their culinary practices along with acquiring new food customs, and they begin adapting to new life. They rely on whatever ingredients they can get and tries to form dishes that are closer to their homeland. The stage of adaptation, wherein people progressively adapt to their dietary changes in the context of host country. This reflects human beings' need to share. This reflects human beings' need to share and dialogue, which is expressed through food. And this cultural fusion that has happened here during the stage of adaptation illuminates the tensions of living in diaspora. The stage of re-entry travel shock, which marks the 5th and the most important stage, is when the migrants who travel back to their homeland with newly acquired cuisines. So this stage signifies important. So this whole process signifies how the role played by food in shaping the sense of belonging or sharpening the differences. This process of acculturation can be seen in how, when we take an instance, when we take an example of a rigid Hindu from India who is to be settled in America where meat is so prevalent, he will try to explore new cuisines initially, but the memories of vegetarian homeland food will inevitably put him under the stage of hostility. It may take time, but he eventually adapts. Now, I'd like to move on to the second part of this paper, which is cuisine and the role of women. So, food-related identities in migration context do not follow a linear path. Rather, there is a contrasting shift between adaptation and searching own roots across generations. Hence, it is rightly quoted by Sylvia Osidic in Food and Cuisine, part of migration process, that cuisine of a place is based on evolution through different people who contributed while living there. It is done when specialities of own country are shared and of others are incorporated within. Cuisines evolve when seen in the context of migration. Food becomes a source of income for migrants. It is also one of the economic aspects related to food. Immigrants start restaurants in local ethnic communities in an effort to make a living and try to satisfy preferences for traditional food in community. This shows how these outlets influence taste of local consumers and contribute to rise in social status of a particular cuisine. It is seen in how specific foods, the preparation and the cooking methods came with enslaved people from Africa to North and South America. The cooking methods included frying, boiling, simmering, roasting, and steaming. Meanwhile, the cuisine is affected by skills of immigrants. The reciprocal effect is also seen when food is transferred by crossing borders. That is, the newly acquired cuisine is taken back to homeland. Role of women is significant in shaping the cuisines. Since the beginning of mankind, culinary practices are put under gendered roles when women is assigned with major role. If one looks at specifically the Indian society that is governed by patriarchy in realm of personal history, role of women since ancient times has been confined to four walls and to the kitchen. But why is the role of culinary always seen in digetory terms? When one looks at food work in form of activism, one is likely to understand how migration helps women to negotiate change and identity in host land. A study was conducted by G. Jagannath, which understood how women are under a transitory phase in migration trajectory, migration trajectory, and when he saw that Indian women, for one or the other reason, had to migrate to South Africa with their husbands. In Indian setup, role of women was to prepare, provide, and present food to family. While doing it, she is also involved in forming household structures and familial notions. Migrant women of South Africa, who were mostly dependent on their husband in initial stages of arrival to settle down, spent majority of the time around households in trying to assimilate within the new culinary practices. So this study by Jagannath refutes the age-old belief that women were feeling oppressed by responsibility of culinary realm. The surveyed women, however, claimed that responsibility rather elevated their autonomy to bring their family together. Their acceptance notion does not make the women vulnerable to patriarchy. Rather, it let them do what they enjoy doing. Migrated women thus found alternative food sources and stood firm on the belief that Indian style of cooking is the most authentic way. They were often seen showcasing their homeland cuisines at social gatherings as a way to preserve their traditional recipe and assert their regional and caste identity. Women possesses culinary capital as accumulated source of skills and experiences, which becomes more significant in their role to balance the imparting of cultural values on one hand and adjusting to food ways of host countries on other. It was to recreate Indian cuisine and restore independence for themselves. Besides that, women had their unique own recipes, which are conduits of intergenerational cultural transmission and that provided links to homeland by creating identity for diasporic community. They found women of their homeland and forged close friendship with them that served as guidance and emotional support. Besides that, the common recipes that served as a symbol of familial bondings and ability of Indian women was witnessed in coping while preserving, reinventing, and transcending challenges within multi-sided trajectory. So I'd like to conclude on this note how food, which has become such an important aspect of our personal history, should not be neglected, and it should be seen in a very wholesome manner in a personal history. Thank you.
Wonderful. That was surely a magnificent presentation of your paper, and you have beautifully explored the connection between food, migration, and diaspora, cuisines with local setup, transition of women that made us familiarize with some of the uncommon aspects of food and spices across the globe. Related to your topic, we have got few questions from some of the budding scholars who are keen to know more about your topic. The first question has been asked by Mr. Shubham Tiwari. He is asking, how does food traditions affect national identity?
Sorry, can you please repeat?
Mr. Shubham Tiwari is asking, how does food traditions affect national identity?
Okay, so national identity is when people connect themselves to their nation on lines of food. They try to identify foods based on nationalistic lines. They try to identify cuisines on nationalistic lines. So when they connect to it and when they migrate to other places, their nationalistic feeling is involved when they see other cuisines as host land cuisines and own cuisines as homeland cuisines.
Okay. Next question has been asked by Mandira Paul. She's asking, do you think different cuisines and food can actually harm our own culture?
I guess the point that I made about political aspect of food is very much answer to this, how America that is asserting its soft power through the aspects of food. So it is involving in a process called McDonaldization. So it is homogenizing the fast food chains. So it is asserting their soft power. So definitely it is a harm to our culture, the intermingling of cuisines, but it is on us, it is on the diaspora to keep it alive, keep our culture alive.
Okay. Next question has been asked by Mr. Ajay Gupta. He is asking, what is the difference between migration and diaspora?
Okay, migration is basically the movement of people from one place to another, and diaspora is the community that is settled in different places who share a common heritage land, common ancestral land. Their native place is same, but they are settled in different parts of the world. So that is diaspora.
Next question is by Miss Archana Bharti. She's asking, if you change your cuisine, how exactly can it affect the economy?
Cuisines affecting economy.
Yeah.
Okay, so since I have taken cuisines in the context of migration, the definition for me, the definition of cuisine that I focus on is related to migration. So I'd like to answer this in that context itself, that this economy is when diaspora communities settle down at a different place, so they are opening up their restaurants that are based on local cuisines, the homeland recipes that they've taken there. So this intermingling that is happening, it is a source of income for them. So economically they are being helped by food practices that they've taken, or the skills that they've taken from their homeland. So it is how economy is affecting the food practices and economy is interrelated.
Well answered. Next question has been asked by Ms. Preeti Rai. She's asking, what are your views on slave trade or bonded labor?
Slave trade and bonded labor. I guess that
Not an
is
issue. Kashish, not an issue. Next question, please. Not an issue.
Next question has been asked by Mr. Aradhya Tyagi. He's asking how food can be used as a political weapon.
again, I would like to emphasize on the fact that food is politically, food is used as a soft power. It is used to assert soft power, such as America is doing it in McDonaldization process. They're trying to homogenize the food cultures around the world. So it is a way to assert soft power. They're trying to homogenize the whole world according to their culture. So I believe that is how it is a political weapon.
Okay, last question. It has been asked by Mr. Vishesh Kazmi. He's asking, as you mentioned, people often treat their traditional spiritual food more better. So do you think that we can get the psychology of society on how they treat food, like conservative or liberals?
I didn't get this question. Can you please repeat?
All right. The question has been asked by Mr. Vishesh Kazmi. He's asking, as you mentioned, people often treat their traditional or spiritual food more better. So do you think that we can get to know the psychology of society on how do they treat food, like conservative or liberals?
Okay, so I guess so. Yes, food practices are a very important determinant of one's culture and one's ideologies. Okay, this is a very good question. Ideologies are very important, and food can determine that. Like I also mentioned in the presentation about the rigid Hindu is asked to settle in America. So yeah, that if he is able to adapt, that is a very liberal approach of him. But if he is facing difficulties, and even if you never know, to a very extreme instance, he can also come back. He can leave his livelihood aside and he can come back because he was not able to adapt to the food practices. So that reflects how conservatist and how traditionalist he can be. So that is it.
Another question has been put by Mr. Raj Thakur. He is asking, do you consider India's soft power in terms of food is significant?
I guess so, yes. India's food practices are very much prevalent in almost all nations, all important nations. So I guess yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Kashish. You have answered all questions.
One more question is on the chat box. From Akash Kumar Singh.
That has already been answered.
Okay,
Ajay
thank you.
That question.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Kashish. You have answered all the questions confidently, and we hope the audience got their questions answered to the best possible extent. Over to you, Saurabh.
Thank you, Ms. Kashish and Mr. Mudit. Now I would like to invite Ms. Manisha Verma, who is our next speaker, that is for the 20th session of GSTS, that is going to take place on the 27th of June, to brief her about her topic, that is language, a barrier or a ladder. She has done her graduation from Daulat Ram College, University of Delhi, and currently she is pursuing her MA in history from University of Delhi itself. Ms. Manisha Verma.
Hello, good evening. Myself Manisha Verma. I'm pursuing Masters in History from Lakshmi Bai College. I thank Sakshi team and Manish sir for giving me such a great platform to express my thoughts. So my topic is language, a barrier or a ladder, in which I'm going to highlight some of the points. First, history of language in India. Second, Nehru's view on language and how dramatically he accepted it by saying, "We have touched the hornet's nest," and I believe most of us are likely to be badly stung. Third, state formation on the base of language. And lastly, today, how we view language in India and why English have taken such a vital role in every field and why national language is such a big issue in 21st century. I invite the teacher and all the listeners to come and join me on 27th of July. It's an interesting topic and I believe everyone is somehow correlated to it. So do kindly come, listen, and share your views on my topic, language, a barrier or a ladder. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manisha Verma. Now I would like to request once again Dr. Vikas Kumar sir to please give us some final concluding remarks.
Okay, again, I am hurt. See, this is a topic. I hope you are not in hurry. All of you are relaxed and you can sit for some time. Fine.
Yeah, sure, sir. Sure.
Okay. Because this is a topic which actually this is so spicy, and Kashish's presentation also included so much of spices. और जब मसालेदार खाना होता है तो उसका जायका ही अलग होता है. तो आप सब हैं, थोड़ा मैं इस पे प्रकाश डालना चाहूँगा. मेरी भी रुचि इस विषय में है और ऐसे टॉपिक को इन्होंने छेड़ दिया है कि मुझसे रहा नहीं जाएगा. इसलिए मैं कह रहा हूँ आप आराम से थोड़ा बैठिए और मैं कुछ प्रस्तुत करूंगा आपके सामने कुछ रोचक तथ्यों को जो इसी से स्पाइस से रिलेटेड, फूड हैबिट से रिलेटेड, फूड का जो कल्चर है और विविध जो इसके आयाम है. She talked about different perspective and there are many things, it is so much interrelated because food is integral part. Man lives for food, shelter and the cloth. That's the basic need. So food is integral part of human right from Neolithic times when we started producing different type of crops, and you have seen the whole historical formation is that is based on the food culture. You go to Western India, Mehergarh wheat. You come to Chiran, you come to Sanuwar, Bihar, the Neolithic site, you have rice. You move to South India, the megalithic site, or even before the Chalcolithic site, and you have ragi. This certainly determines one's culture, one's identity, regional identity, cultural identity, even sometimes political identity. I'll give you certain example. And therefore, I'm saying that hold on and bear with me. See, food, spice is a very good topic. And India was known for its spices right from very beginning. And the Indo-Roman trade, which happened around 2nd century BC to 4th century, 5th century AD, Indo-Roman trade. And that was spice was such an important commodity that the Roman treasury was empty and trade imbalance happened, and we used to export more than what we used to import. Our spices were so much in demand, and that caused imbalance of trade and a worry for the Roman emperor Augustus. After Augustus, in that ईसा पूर्व आप पहली सदी में देखें तो ये सारी जो असंतुलन हुआ व्यापार में भारत और रोम के बीच, उसके बहुत दूरगामी परिणाम हुए. अब स्पाइस जो था, मसाला था, आपको इसकी अहमियत मैं इसी बात से बताता हूँ. स्पाइस, you read J.I. Miller, 1969 he writes a book, and he writes the book titled The Spice Trade of Roman Empire. See, the name of the book itself is Spice Trade. Spice was such an important commodity. आप अगर गूगल करेंगे आपको मिलेगा. स्पाइस ट्रेड की बात करेंगे, आप देखेंगे कि जो सारा ट्रेड. अब स्पाइस की एक और खासियत बताता हूँ. टिल टुडे, which is the region which produces most amount of spice in India, South India, especially Kerala and Western Ghat, Tamil Nadu का. अब देखिए बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग फैक्ट. स्पाइस केरला से वहां पे एंशियंट लिटरेचर में, प्राचीन काल के साहित्य में आपको एक शब्द आता है, एक पद है जिसको कहता है यवन प्रिय. यवन जो है आपने सुना होगा, हिस्ट्री के स्टूडेंट हैं आप. यवन कहा जाता था रोमन, जो वहां से मलेच कहा जाता था उनको, या यवन कहा जाता था कि उनको डिग्रेडेड समझा जाता था, उनको पोल्यूटेड समझा जाता था, उनको निम्न स्तर का समझा जाता था. इसीलिए उनके लिए यवन शब्द प्रयुक्त हुआ है संस्कृत साहित्य में. अब एक और नया शब्द आता है, उसको क्या है, उसका प्रयोग हुआ है यवन प्रिय. और ये यवन प्रिय पता है क्या है? यवन प्रिय किस चीज के लिए प्रयुक्त हुआ है? पेपर, ब्लैक पेपर, काली मिर्च. काली मिर्च को संस्कृत साहित्य में यवन प्रिय कहा गया, क्योंकि यवनों का जो रोमन थे, जिसको ये लोग इंफीरियर मानते थे, उनके लिए प्रिय वस्तु थी. मतलब that was so much dear, which caused, as I said, that imbalance of trade. Now you see, I will tell you another interesting fact. How this particular commodity became very important. Now the trade was happening so much and we were exporting so much. हमारा निर्यात हो रहा था, आयात कम हो रहा था. अब हुआ ऐसे मकाम पे पहुंच गए हम कि हमारा ट्रेड, उनका डिमांड इतना बढ़ गया कि हम उसमें सक्षम नहीं थे पूर्ति करने में. अब क्या करें हम, व्यापारी करें क्या? तब क्या होता है, इतिहास में एक नया मोड़ आता है. देखिए स्पाइस ने कैसे कैसे ऐतिहासिक प्रक्रिया को जन्म दिया, ये समझने वाली बात है. एक छोटे से एक पदार्थ ने, या एक कह सकते हैं एक प्रोडक्ट ने, उत्पाद ने. उसके बाद हमारे व्यापारी किधर रुख करते हैं? साउथ ईस्ट एशिया, दक्षिण पूर्वी एशिया, जहां स्पाइसों का मलेशिया में, इंडोनेशिया में, फिलीपाइंस में मसालों का मतलब भंडार है, प्राकृतिक जो संपदा है. और तब हमारा साउथ ईस्ट एशिया का ट्रेड बढ़ता है. और साउथ ईस्ट पहले इंडो रोमन ट्रेड है भारत से, और बाद में सेकेंड स्टेज ट्रेड का देखेंगे जब 6th सेंचुरी ऑनवर्ड्स और पोस्ट गुप्ता पीरियड ऑनवर्ड, यू विल फाइंड द ट्रेड टुवर्ड्स साउथ ईस्ट एशिया दैट पिक्स अप, and the ports on the east coast becomes very important. Earlier the west coast is very important, where you have Pattanam, Nelisinda, all these ports, but later on you have Arika may do it since before, but you will have Mahabalipuram in Pallava time, you will have important port of Kotapattanam in Andhra Pradesh, and this port Odisha mein Manikapatna. All this port will cater to the relation between India and Southeast Asia. So you see the move, the search for the spice, and you see it is also interesting. J.I. Miller in his book calls this route as cinnamon route. सिनामोन तो आप सबको पता है क्या सिनामोन है, दालचीनी। इस रूट का नाम ही हो गया, जिस तरह से रेशम मार्ग आप कहते हैं सिल्क रूट चाइना का, इस व्यापार मार्ग का रूट ही हो गया, उसका नाम ही हो गया सिनामोन रूट। अब देखिए एक सिनामोन ने एक पदार्थ ने एक रूट को, एक व्यापार मार्ग के नाम को जन्म दे दिया, जिस तरह से रेशम मार्ग है स्पाइस रूट से। अब स्पाइस की और भी खासियत बताता हूँ। आगे जब बढ़ते हैं तो अफ्रीका के साथ ठीक है, अब कशिश का ज्यादा फोकस था मॉडर्न, या उसमें आप न्यू वर्ल्ड की बात कर रही थी, उसमें जो अर्ली मॉडर्न यूरोप या उस समय जो होता है, जो एक्सप्लोरेशन और जो पीरियड है उसका, उस समय का है। ये बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग फैक्ट है। कैसे देखिए एक खाने पीने की जो अभी आपने बात की, बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग कशिश, you told that how, and somebody asked a question also, that how this food habits, you know, that changes the identity, and that relates to nationalism or any other ism or ideology, your beliefs, your custom, your rituals, everything is very much there. There are so many evidences. I will give you another very interesting evidence. बौद्ध धर्म पहुंच गया पहली सदी में चीन में, बाद में 6ठी 7वीं सदी में जापान पहुंचा, साउथ ईस्ट एशिया। फिर जैसे मैंने बताया जब हमारा व्यापार संबंध उनके साथ सुदृढ़ हुआ दक्षिण पूर्वी एशिया के साथ, तो हिंदू धर्म भी, चाहे वो बराबदोर का मंदिर हो, अंकोरगढ़ का मंदिर हो, और बाकी सारी चीजें बौद्ध धर्म और ये, और श्रीलंका में तो पहले ही पहुंच गया था हीनयान। अब बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है, जो पुरातात्विक उत्खनन हुए हैं उससे आपको पता है कि अनेक प्रकार के अवशेष प्राप्त होते हैं, जिसमें जो मृदु भांड है, जो पॉटरी है, वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। अब एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग ट्रेंड देखने को मिलता है कि भारत में जो चीनी मिट्टी, जिसको पोर्सिलिन कहते हैं, पोर्सिलिन 12th-13th सेंचुरी में आता है। बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग है। देखिए व्यापार मैं कह रहा हूं आपको, ईसा पूर्व पहली सदी से रोमन है, उसके पहले मेसोपोटामिया और हड़प्पा में तो हो ही रहा है, उसके बाद की मैं नई उसकी बता रहा हूँ, और उसके बाद फिर साउथ ईस्ट एशिया के साथ है। चाइना बौद्ध धर्म तो पहली सदी में पहुंच गया है, तो चीनी मिट्टी के बर्तन आने में इतना टाइम, 11 सदी कैसे लग गया शताब्दी। और जब श्रीलंका में देखते हैं तो श्रीलंका में यही मृत्यु भांड आपको 7वीं-8वीं सदी में आ जाते हैं। अब सवाल ये उठता है, तो इस पे इतिहासकारों ने जो शोध किया तो पता लगा, उनका ये मानना है, मत है, कि ये फूड कल्चर के कारण ये पॉटरी नहीं आती थी। क्यों? क्योंकि वहां बौद्ध धर्म था। बौद्ध धर्म प्रदूषण और पवित्रता की उनको जो अवधारणा थी वो हिंदू धर्म से अलग थी। द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ प्यूरिटी एंड द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ पोल्यूशन जो हिंदू धर्म में है कि हम दूसरे के प्लेट में नहीं खाएंगे, विदेशी प्लेट में, और बौद्ध धर्म इन चीजों को बहुत वो उदारवादी था। तो इसीलिए श्रीलंका में बौद्ध धर्म जो अशोक के काल में पहुंच गया था, और उसके बाद चीन के मार्ग से साउथ चाइना सी होकर जो व्यापार मार्ग आया और वहां यात्री पहुंचे, तो वो लोग, उन लोगों ने वहां के मृदु भांडों को उनका स्वागत किया। लेकिन जब हमारे तट पे मुस्लिम व्यापारियों का आगमन होता है, और तब से देखेंगे जब तटों पे, जब मेडिवल टाइम, अर्ली मेडिवल टाइम, उसके बाद से 7वीं-8वीं सदी से, और तब देखेंगे कि इनका संबंध हमारा उस प्रकार के अवशेष जो है ज्यादा मिलने शुरू होते हैं। ये मसालों का जो है ना, मसालों की जो बात मैंने की, ये आप देखेंगे जो अवशेष मिले हैं बेर्निके, आप गूगल करिए, एक साइट देखिए बड़ा फेमस है, ई साइट गौतम ने उसका एक्सकेवेशन भी किया है, किताबें हैं, इंटरनेट आर्काइव्स में शायद मिल जाए। बेर्निके रेड सी पे एक बहुत बड़ा पोर्ट है। रेड सी पे आप गल्फ ऑफ एडन से ऊपर जाएंगे मेडिटेरेनियन की तरफ, रेड सी पे, तो एडन, अभी गूगल आप करिए बेर्निके, आपको आ जाएगा सारा इमेज में और इसमें मैप में। वहां से जो मुसरी था हमारा, जो पट्टनम जिसको कहते हैं, जो वहाँ केरल का, वहां से इतनी सारी सामग्री गई है, उसमें स्पाइस के जो अवशेष मिले हैं, उसके जो बीज होते हैं मसाले के, इस प्रकार के, और इवन मुसरी जो आप कहते हैं पत्तनम में, उसको देख के मतलब इतिहासकार लोग भी आश्चर्यचकित है कि जो वॉल्यूम था, जो उसका जो व्यापार की जो मात्रा थी, वो कितना इंपॉर्टेंट था व्यापार में। अब बड़ा रोचक चीज है, इस पे कशिश ने बताया कि कैसे मतलब बदलाव आता है। जैसे मैंने आपको एक उदाहरण दिया कि प्राचीन काल में कैसे हुआ, मध्यकालीन, और कैसे जो फूड हैबिट है, ये फूड हैबिट भी बड़ी अजीब चीज है। आप किसी ने पूछा था क्वेश्चन, इकोनॉमी में कैसे चेंज आता है। इकोनॉमी में चेंज आप देखेंगे कि अगर फूड पैटर्न चेंज होता है, सपोज हम सब लोग आज पिज्जा खाने लगे, ग्लोबल में ये प्रॉब्लम है जो अभी आपने कहा कि होमोजेनिटी ये जो आ रहा है, ये प्रॉब्लम है, इसे हमें समझना होगा और इसको एड्रेस भी करना होगा। बट वी आर ब्लाइंड, इसलिए यंग जनरेशन को, हमें सबको, हमारी सबकी जिम्मेदारी है और सबकी बहुत बड़ी चुनौती है कि हम जाने अनजाने में सबको मोमोज खाना है। हमारा फूड कल्चर चले, हो सकता है 50 साल में चेंज हो जाए जाने अनजाने में। अब उसका अंजाम इकोनॉमी पे क्या इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा? सबसे पहले तो आपका क्रॉप पैटर्न चेंज होगा। इकोनॉमी की बात करते हैं, जो किसान अब धान गेहूं आप कम खाते हैं और मोमोज अधिक खाते हैं, तो मोमोज और पिज्जा के लिए जो प्रोडक्ट है वो आपका क्रॉप पैटर्न चेंज हो जाएगा इंडिया का। उससे क्या, क्रॉप पैटर्न चेंज होने पे इकोनॉमी में उसको आप सारी चीज से जोड़, जलवायु से जोड़ के देखिए कि क्या हमारी लैंड जो है वो पिज्जा के प्रोडक्ट को उगाने के लिए, या दूसरे चीज जो भी आप दूसरे को मान लें, या हम नॉनवेज अपना डाइट हमारा मान लीजिए, सिंपल उदाहरण दे रहे हैं साधारण सा, हम वेजिटेरियन नॉन वेजिटेरियन दोनों है, लेकिन एक की मात्रा बढ़ जाती है किसी की, अगर सारे लोग या मैक्सिमम लोग किसी एक को कर, तो उसमें क्या होगा कि सारा फूड पैटर्न चेंज होगा। इससे अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट, एम्प्लॉयमेंट की दृष्टि से देखेंगे, जो किसान है अभी के, उनको आइदर बदलना पड़ेगा उन चीज को, फिर जमीन को आपको या उसके लायक बनाना पड़ेगा, आइदर उसमें फर्टिलाइजर देंगे, क्या देंगे, ये बहुत बड़ी समस्या है। और जहां तक अब क्या होगा इसका, दूसरी चीज है कि कल्चर और हेरिटेज तो आपका खो ही जाएगा। आप गुजराती थाली, ढोकला, या राजस्थान या उसकी जो भी राजस्थानी थाली, या चावल भात और माछ भात, इसको आप जो एंजॉय करते हैं, ये तो आपको होमोजेनिटी से और ग्लोबलाइजेशन से इस पे असर तो पड़ेगा। और फूड जैसा मैंने बताया कि इंटेग्रल है, जहाँ कभी आप माइग्रेट होके जाते हैं या कहीं दूसरी जगह पे जाते हैं। सदा मैं सिंपल सा उदाहरण दूंगा ऐसे, आज से आप दक्षिण भारत में जाते, केरल में, केरल के अगर कोई है तो समझेंगे वहां से, तो आज से 30 साल पहले, 25-30 साल पहले वहां पे आपको सरसों का तेल किसी दुकान में, अगर ट्रिवांड्रम कैपिटल जैसे शहर में जाते, तो आपको शहर में जाते तब आपको 50 दुकान घूमने के बाद सरसों का तेल मिलता। सरसों का तेल नहीं मिलता है, क्योंकि नारियल के तेल में, लोग सब चीज वहां नारियल के तेल में होता है, सस्ता है और उपलब्ध है, और सरसों का तेल उन लोगों के लिए एक सोने की तरह था, तो नहीं होता था। आज आप जाएंगे केरल में वही, तो आज आपको हर शहर में सरसों का तेल मिलेगा, क्योंकि यहाँ से लोग वहां जा चुके हैं, और बहुत पहले नहीं जाते थे, वहां पे बहुत सारे बिहार के, उत्तर प्रदेश के, उत्तर भारत के लोग वहां आपको मिलेंगे देखने के लिए। इसलिए ये फूड कल्चर जो वहां भी सरसों का तेल, एक साधारण बहुत सारी चीजें हैं। तंबाकू खाना, आप देखिए दिल्ली में, मैं भी जैसे आया था उस जमाने में, जब दिल्ली में, तो देखता था कि तंबाकू, यहाँ के लोगों को तंबाकू खाने का ये नहीं था, लेकिन आज के वहाँ के लोग नॉर्थ इंडिया के आए, ये भी मैं फूड कल्चर हैबिट या एडिक्शन उसकी बात भी मैं कर रहा हूँ, कैसे ये कल्चरल आइडेंटिटी है आपकी, या फूड, या उस कैसे उसकी, अब वो चीज अच्छा है बुरा है, इस पे मैं नहीं जाना चाहूंगा, इसकी डिबेट अभी विवाद नहीं कर रहे हैं, लेकिन मैं बोल, इसका एक और भी उदाहरण है बहुत, जो सब लोग, अफीम युद्ध क्या था। अफीम युद्ध एक अफीम के कारण हुआ बहुत बड़ा, और लोगों ने, ब्रिटिश लोगों ने वहां देके उनको नशाखोर बना दिया, चीन को पूरा नशेखोरी की आदत लग गई, नशेड़ी। और सारा जब वहां का जो सिंह, जो वहां का रूलर था, शासक था, वो तो बहुत उसकी जो चिंतित हो गया कि उसके दरबार में जितने सैनिक थे और अधिकारी थे, वो नशा लेके पड़े रहते थे, और व्यापार में नुकसान तो हो ही रहा था, जो यहाँ से अफीम जाता था पटना से, मालवा से, और जैसे व्यापार, और वहां से मतलब यहाँ से इंपोर्ट हो रहा है, और ब्रिटिश लोगों का वो तो आर्थिक नीति, उस पर फिर हम विवाद नहीं करेंगे, लेकिन मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि अफीम ने, एक पदार्थ ने, जो व्यापार का पदार्थ था, व्यापार की सामग्री थी, उसने कैसे एक बहुत बड़े युद्ध को जन्म दिया, और कैसे उसने वहां पे पूरी सांस्कृतिक परिवर्तन को लाया, जिसके कारण चीन को मजबूर होना पड़ा ब्रिटिश के साथ उस समय तत्कालिक युद्ध में जाने के लिए। तो ऐसी बहुत सारी घटनाएं हैं जो आप देखेंगे कि फूड हैबिट किस प्रकार से इतिहास के, ऐतिहासिक जो परिवर्तन की प्रक्रिया है, हिस्टोरिकल फॉर्मेशन है, इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन है, डायस्पोरा, या आप लीजिए माइग्रेशन, उसके लिए फार रीचिंग इम्प्लीकेशन है इसका। सो विदाउट थिंकिंग ना, हम जो आज कह रहे हैं, आज हम खा रहे हैं, मैं कहूंगा कि इतना केवल ये बहुत अच्छा प्रयास है। हाँ, उसके बाद में थोड़ा और बोलना था मुझे, ऐसा नहीं कि कहते कहते मैं आवेश में भूल जाऊं जो मुझे बोलना था। श्यामलाल कॉलेज को मुझे इसके लिए मुबारकबाद देना चाहिए, कॉन्ग्रेचुलेट करना चाहिए, मनीष जी को, डीएन सिंह जी को, प्रमोद जी को, रमन जी को, और लोगों को, कि ऐसी सीरीज जो है इन्होंने इसकी शुरुआत की, और लोग आ रहे हैं, मतलब नए अंडर ग्रेजुएट है या फिर एमए के छात्र हैं, वो इस पे बोल रहे हैं, ये बहुत बड़ा अवसर है। और इसको नए एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में तो है ही सब की चीजें, तो ये बहुत अच्छा है आप लोग बोल रहे हैं, परंतु इतिहास के ये होने के कारण मैं बस ये करूंगा, ये कोई मतलब मैं इस पे कोई कमेंट नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है, बट एक सुझाव है कि थोड़ा सा हम इतिहास के विद्यार्थी हैं तो हमें भी इतिहास की रूपरेखा के अनुसार और उसकी जो दृष्टिकोण है अपने पेपर्स में उसको रख के हम चलें तो आगे। फॉर एग्जांपल सोर्स आपका इंपॉर्टेंट है, उसके अलावा उसको पीरियड में, काल में सिचुएट कीजिए, किस काल की आप बात कर रहे हैं। आपका पेपर बहुत ही छोटा हो कोई बात नहीं, 15 मिनट ही आप बोले, लेकिन उसमें ऐतिहासिक जो उसमें जो मसाला है, जो हिस्टोरिकल स्पाइस है, वो होना चाहिए, तब मजा आएगा सुनने में कि इसको किस काल में आप ले रहे हैं। बिल्कुल ये काल है मेरा, ये चीज है, मेरा ऑब्जेक्टिव है, मुझे क्या साबित करना है इस पेपर में 10 मिनट में, ये साबित करना। बी वेरी पिन पॉइंट एंड बी वेरी ब्रीफ, नो नीड टू गो हियर एंड देयर। सपोज नो नीड टू गो टू मॉडर्न अमेरिका, नो नीड टू गो टू अगेन एंशिएंट इंडिया. You be very particular and give some example. That will make the paper very interesting and very pinpointed. These are certain suggestions. Rest, as I said, that this food, because I can speak and speak and speak so much about food and so much about trade. And but as I don't want to take much time, and you all are, waiting. I'm sure you are waiting for 1 hour, so it's time. And so I should end. I should again thank all the organizers. I should wish everyone all the best, and I certainly enjoy this program. And Kashish, all the best. Kudos to you, and to Manisha also, who is going to present the paper in the forthcoming session. And kudos to all the organizers, students, teachers, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your...
Saurabh, sir. Sorry for the disturb. Sir, Devesh sir is here. Sir, kindly give some blessings to my students, sir, for a few minutes. Devesh sir, can you listen me?
Yes, I can listen.
Sir. Good evening, sir. Thank you for joining, sir.
Yeah, just want to say hearty congratulations, and it is
Thank you.
really nice meeting you at least on screen.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
This
Thank you, sir.
technology has a tremendous potential, and unfortunately, some of our colleagues were not very enthusiastic about it, and so I really appreciate Vikas and you and other teachers who are fostering this. This will be a wonderful bond across institutions, meeting of minds, meetings of thoughts. That is what creates renaissance. So let's hope.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
That I wanted to say.
Thank you. Anand sir, he has left. Okay, go ahead, Saurabh. Sorry to disturb you. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Devesh, sir. And thank you so much, Dr. Vikas Kumar, sir. So it was really very informative, and surely, sir, we'll work on your suggestions moving ahead in our upcoming GSTS programs. So at last, now I would like to invite Ms. Preeti Rai for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Saurabh. Good evening, everyone. I am Preeti, a Joint Secretary of Saksh, the History Society of Shamlal College Evening. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks today in the 19th session of GSTS. I, on behalf of Saksh and whole GSTS team, extend a hearty vote of thanks everyone present here. We all know as it is pandemic time, we all are disturbed by the situation. Somehow, this talk series helps us to maintain our personality and present your thoughts on each Sunday. Your presence is highly appreciated. Now, as you may know, the Department of History is under the convenership of Dr. D.N. Singh sir, and under the guidance of Dr. Manish Karma sir, Dr. Pramod Kumar sir, Dr. Seema Meena ma'am, and Mr. Ajay Kumar sir, achieved new heights during the session of 2016 to 2017. This was the first time when department formed its society, Saksh. The new office bearers of 2021, Mr. Ankit, President, Ms. Mandira Pol as Vice President, Mr. Shubham Tiwari as a Secretary, Ms. Preeti, me as a Joint Secretary, Ms. Chandni Sikarwar as a Treasurer. Sakshi has organized pages, debates, lecture series, seminars, career counseling, and educational trips. Sakshi also organized the OBE seminar and 18th Graduate Scholars Talk series. This is a weekly talk series started to present the scholars' view on various topics to enhance their ideas and speaking skills. Now, I wish to express my gratitude to our guest, Dr. Vikash Kumar sir, for her kind, encouraging, and informative word, for giving us his precious time. Thanks a lot, sir. I would like to express my thanks to Dr. Dian Singh sir, convener of the society, for his presence in this program, and now special thanks to Dr. Devesh Vijay sir for joining us today. My sincere thanks to all the faculty members who become a part of this event. Special thanks to Dr. Raman sir, Dr. Anand sir, Dr. Kundan Mishra ma'am, Dr. Bharti ma'am, Dr. Pankaj sir, and Dr. Anil sir for joining us today. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for our speaker, Ms. Kassis Kamra, for your explanation of the topic. Sugar and spice, not everything, is always nice. A big thanks you to Ms. Kassis for efforts towards your lecture. It was absolutely amazing how you tackled all the questions and adorning your necessary work and sharing your graceful opinion on the topic. Sugar and spice, not everything, always nice. And I like your way how you added lots of book like Cuisine and Culture, A History of Food and People by Linda Civitello. And next one is Indian Food, A Historical Companion by Katie Akaya. And I have read a little bit about this topic, but after coming here today, I came to know what type of food is important for our health. So I really enjoyed your topic and get lots of information, and this is the time when everyone is worried about their health, so this type of talk and speech help you. Now I would like to take this opportunity to place our heartily thanks to the GSTS team for their enormous cooperation in the organization of this event. I can't thank everyone enough for their involvement and their willingness to take on the completion of tasks even in this difficult time. Finally, I wish to thank all the students from various departments who joined and become a part of today's event. Thank you all so much for your time and patience. Once again, thank you all very much. Stay inside, stay safe, and take care of each other. We will see you next Sunday on 27th June 2021 with the topic Language, a Barrier or a Ladder by Miss Manisha Verma. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Okay,
sir, you are
thank you,
mute, sir.
sir. Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Vikas, sir. Thank you, Devesh, sir. So it's time for. I'm the last person who's going to leave because,
You are the last person.
yeah, I'm the last
सबको
person. Yes, sir.
विकास जी को विदा कर दिए.
हाँ, विकास सर को. Thank you, Devesh, sir. बहुत अच्छा लगा.
देवेश सर.
Welcome.
Sir,
I enjoyed it, and I really wish this kind of interaction continues.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Aradhe is talking was about मैंने बोला कि सर को जब हम जरूर बुलाएंगे, लेकिन उनको तो हम चीफ गेस्ट की तरफ बुलाएंगे. लेकिन आराध्य बार-बार बोलता था सर हम बुलाते हैं, बोले जरूर बुलाइए. अच्छा लगा सर, बहुत अच्छा लगा सर.
It was a joy.
Yes, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Kassis, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. Thank you, Kassis.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, Aarti, good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.